This episode of All the Gear is brought to you by Kegland. Welcome back to All the Gear. Today on All the Gear, we're going to take you on an adventure from fermentation to distillation of this. This is 10 litres of Dunder and Muck infused distilled from sugarcane molasses rum. In this video, I'm going to take you on a journey through rum and the process of making it, as well as 2 generations of wash, and we're going to go through 3 distillations to create this funky, flavorful rum. First of all, rum. What is it? Rum is a fermented and distilled alcoholic beverage that is generally derived from this. This is Saccharum officinarum, or the sugarcane plant. It's a genus of grass that's internodes are high in the sugar sucrose and was heavily cultivated in the Caribbean in the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries. Rum is made from a byproduct of sugar production called molasses. In the research for this video, I actually went and visited a distillery. I know, I've got a really hard job. The boys over at Capricorn Distilling took me on a tour of their distillery and I got to taste a bunch of their rums. They were like an open book. They showed me all of their processes, including 2 massive to me, but really only artisan, a 1,000 and a 5,000 litre still that they actually had purpose built for their distillery, and their aging processes. So rum is generally made with pot stills. These stills were actually double retort copper pot stills. So essentially the stills that they're using are alembic stills. They allow all of the flavor to come through from the wash, and then they retort through retort chambers, or you might actually know them as thumpers. So for the fermentation of my rum, I'm going with a molasses. Now this is a molasses that is refined in Bundaberg, and there is actually a rum in Australia called Bundaberg rum, which was established in 1888 and is one of the most popular rums in Australia. There are 3 broad categories of rum. There is white rum or unaged rum. There is gold rum, which is aged rum, generally aged in American or French oak. And then there is also spiced rum. All of these rums can be created from the base white rum that we are creating today. And we will also be taking that rum an extra couple of steps into the aged rum, the gold rum category, with a modern technique that I've covered before on this channel using ultrasonic aging. Okay, so for today's recipe, I'll be using Saltbush Bill's recipe, which I'll link in the description below. All we'll need is a 30-litre fermenter and airlock. I'm using the Fermzilla because it's going to allow me to show you what's going on in the fermentation chamber. All of the equipment that I'm using today will be available on the Kegland website. The yeast I'll be using today is the Lalvin EC1118, and I'll also be using some yeast nutrient. So to start with, we need some molasses. So I'm just going to be adding in 8 litres of my molasses into my sanitized fermenter. To this, we're going to add in 5 litres of boiling water. Now, all of the freedom units are in the recipe below. And I'm just going to use a drill with a mixing paddle to mix that up. And this is 5 litres of almost boiling water all up. So we want to get this up to 25 litres. That should reduce the temperature down to hopefully about 30 degrees. So that's perfect. So now we can add in our yeast nutrient. A tablespoon. So I'm just going to throw that in, mix it up. This is the EC1118, and I'm just going to pitch that straight on top of my ferment. You want the pH in this to be about 5.2. I'm going to test my pH. This is just a cheap pH pen. The pH is 5.46. I'm actually quite happy with that. So we can pop the top back on. Now this next part is optional. It will take longer if you can't maintain the temperature at a roughly 30 degree state, but it will ferment over time. And if you've already got an ambient temperature of between 25 and 30 degrees, it's probably unnecessary. This is a fermentation heater wrap. To control this, to make sure it doesn't get too hot, we can use this. This is a temperature controller, and this is the thermometer. And I'm just going to insulate that as well. Okay, so here goes. We've got 2 time-lapse cameras and the temperature controller controlling our fermentation heater. Okay, so it's the next day, and you can see we have an active ferment. Look at all those bubbles working. And our airlock is also bubbling away. So we're full of carbon dioxide, and this is working rather nicely. Even though our temperature's only about 22 degrees, it was freezing last night. It was the coldest night this year at 0.9 degrees Celsius. It's struggling to keep up with the environmental conditions, but without this, I'd say we'd be a lot lower. If I wanted to raise the temperature, I could actually cover this in blankets, but I do want to get this footage. So our fermentation has finally finished. It's been about 8 days, and the temperature of the wash is 26.8 degrees at the moment. It fluctuated up and down. It was just the winter solstice, so it's been the coldest it could possibly be. The fermentation heater has been struggling the whole time to keep it warm, but it's done a decent enough job, and it made a really quick wash. So now what we're going to do is we're going to distill it. The first run is going to be a stripping run. Now we're going to be making 2 generations of rum. This is going to be the first generation, and I'm actually going to add the first generation to my second generation, and this generation is going to create the dunder for the next generation. Dunder is actually what creates the generations and the complex flavors in generational batched rum. You will take a certain percentage of the wash that's had all of the alcohol distilled out of it, and you'll add it back in to your fermenter for the next generation of rum. So over here I have a 60-litre fermenter. That is going to allow me to up the production of my rum from the 30-litre fermenter where I just wanted to show you the fermentation to a larger amount, and this is going to give me the perfect amount of dunder for that as well. I'll pretty much use the whole leftover wash for the next ferment. I've also bought a bunch more molasses, and over here I have my still. Now this is a 65-litre Digiboil boiler with the Alcoengine Pot Still head on top. Now all of this equipment is available from Kegland, and this is the first time I'm actually using it. And for our purposes here today, we'll be using the Pot Still head so that we can get more of our flavors come through, more of our esters and our alcohols coming through from the wash and give us more flavor in the final product. Quite interested to try the wash, just to taste it. I want to find out whether it's sweet. Ooh, that smells incredible actually. No, it's not sweet at all. Oh, how do I explain that? Vegemite, yeast. It's not all bad. It's not great. I'm going to put this in the still, and whatever sludge is at the bottom, I'm going to add into the next fermentation. That is 25 litres or 24 litres. So that's our wash. Add the top on. Turn on the boiler, get the wash up to boil. So for my boiler, I'm using the 2000 watt setting. I've actually set this alarm to go off when it hits 50 degrees Celsius. That's going to alert me that the distill has started, and I can start to monitor this whole thing. And I'll show you up here, I've already got my water running through the still head. That is my alarm telling me that the distill started, and we've got some drips coming out right now. That's a good alarm to have, and we've started to pick up pace with our 4 shots. Okay, so just because I can, and this is the first time I've played around with it, I'm collecting jars just to get the hang of this process. There, that's definitely discard. Heads. I'm interested to see how much we collect. Now this is actually going to be quite warm. Just want to get an idea of our alcohol percentage. We're still pretty high, 65%. We're deep into the tails. I've identified where I think the hearts begins. So I'm fairly sure that 1 and 2 are 4 shots. 3, 4, and 5, maybe even 6 are heads, and the hearts begins at 7, maybe even 8. Just going to put a little bit in, dash some water in that as well. And this is white rum. That's really good actually. There's heaps of flavor come through from the wash, and that's a good white rum actually. I'd actually be pretty keen to age this product. However, I think we can get some better flavors. So, yep, we're definitely discarding the first 2. I'm gonna put that in a 4 shots bottle that I'll just use for cleaning purposes. You can see the cloudiness in that compared to the last one. Even that's a little bit cloudy, really. Clear. So these are the feints at the end, but because it is a stripping run, we're gonna put this all back through. Even the feints are going back into our next run. That's actually pretty bloody good. I would like to test the percentage on that. What are we at? So 55%. And these 2 are alcohol cleaner. What I wanna do now is, we are going to start the next ferment because we now have the dunder. We're adding in the dunder to our fermenter, just to make my life easier. So now all I've got to do is add in double the molasses that I did last time, 16 liters. And then I'm gonna add in water, and then I'll add in my yeast from the old ferment. This is not hot, this is from the fermentation chamber. This is exactly the same as last time, I've just doubled it. And an even bigger fermentation heater than last time. So it's been, what, 8 or 9 days since I started fermenting this second generation of rum. And it tastes like Vegemite? Yeah, it's like Vegemite. Okay, so I may sound like I'm obsessed with Vegemite, and that's because I'm Australian and we eat Vegemite for breakfast, which essentially means we eat rum for breakfast. There's no sweetness to it at all, which is the good part. All the sugars have been fermented into alcohol. I'm really beginning to like the smell of this, this wash. All right, here's the not fun part. Yeah, I've got to figure out another way. I figured out another way. Now, before we add in the rest of our wash, I'm actually gonna add in the first generation rum, which we distilled last time. And that's gonna blend it with our second generation rum, except bring through hopefully some more of the flavor of this wash that includes the dunder. This is only gonna be a stripping run, so I'm pretty much just collecting it all. So let's add in our first generation rum. I got this off a 25 litre wash, and this wash was a 50 litre wash. So I'm expecting to get 2 of these from this wash, as well as this, which I just added in, which is gonna equal, well, these are 5 litres roughly. So we're looking at 15 litres. And I'm just gonna fill it up, leaving a little bit of headroom at the top. Probably didn't leave enough headroom there. So we're maxed out there at 55 litres or 15 gallons. Probably not enough headroom. So I'm gonna add in some distilling conditioner to this. Turn the still on. I've got it on max power. So we're using 3000 watts to get it up. And then I'll switch it down to 2000 watts, which is the max heating that the Alcoengine Pot Still can take. And we'll start collecting it in this. This is a distilling parrot. It allows you to drop an alcoholometer into it, and it will give you an alcohol reading based on the output of the still. This is really good for neutral spirits and stripping runs. So this is a stripping run. I just want to know what the alcohol content of this is as I'm running it, so that I know when to start and stop collecting. It will give me some intimate knowledge about how the still runs. So I'm gonna use it for this stripping run just to get used to it. And I'm gonna start running the water through the still just because I can, really. We're at like just under 75 degrees. So at 78, we're gonna start getting alcohol come off. Just turning off one of these boilers. So I'm just leaving it at 2000 watts of power. I'm gonna set up a parrot. And as you can see, this isn't being submerged at all. It's just running down into the top of the parrot. It travels down the parrot and fills up to here where it overflows over this central tube and into this tube, which it then flows down into our collection jar. I'm gonna let this fill up. We have pretty much a stream of distillate coming out now, and that will fill up the parrot and we'll see it overflow here. And here it comes. And we are overflowing now. We can now test the strength of our alcohol as it collects. So we'll drop in our alcoholometer, like so. And as you can see, we have 60% alcohol. Percentage and proof, it just doubled. So that's 120 proof. Now this distillate is coming out at a temperature of about 22.5 degrees Celsius. So there's not really gonna be much variance in this. There might be like a few percent. We'll probably only have like 1% variance, which is absolutely acceptable for me. So I'm just gonna collect all that and then we can do our second run. I've collected my stripping run. Well, I'm about to come up to, it's at 20%, so I'm about to finish the stripping run completely. This carboy was collected till 30%, and this is my faints. You can definitely see the difference in the color between the 30% and the faints. I've yet to decide whether I'm adding this to my double distill. I've got to smell it, but I'm gonna leave that till tomorrow. We're at 97 degrees on the top. At 96, we had 23%, and at 97, we've got 20%. And we'll do another distill tomorrow, probably. And I almost forgot, this is actually when we are gonna start our next ferment. Using the dunder from this still to do the same as we did last time with the last ferment. You just use your ratios for the recipe that is provided below. I'll save this yeast. I'm gonna save a 10-litre bucket of dunder as well for another ferment. Use this dunder to melt our molasses. Okay, so for this distillation, I'll be redistilling 2 spirit runs. For this run, I will actually be adding in some of my muck bucket. So it's dunder that I collected from the first and second ferments, the dunder that came out after I'd distilled them. I've just left it in a bucket, which has a filter over the top to stop insects getting into it. And it looks like this. I actually just added some dunder to it. So it's got a nice layer of what they call rum oils over the top. When I add this in to our still, the organic molecules in this muck, in this old dunder, is going to react with the molecules in the rum, and it's going to give us some nice fruity flavors that you wouldn't get if you didn't add this into your final distill. So I'm hoping that some of the character from the ferment came through into the rum, as well as just doubling down with that flavor in this muck bucket, in this old dunder that I saved from the first and second generations. I'm now up to like generation like 3 and 4. So we're really moving along with the rum generations as I'm making these series of videos. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna add in half of my muck bucket. I've been keeping up this muck bucket so that I can continue whatever microbial life is going on in there. You can see on the edge of that bucket all of the microbial action that's happening in there. So I've added about 4 litres into there. And I'm gonna add in my rums now. And I'm also gonna add in some water because these were sitting at around 50%. So I wanna get that down to below 40% while it's in my still. So I'm just gonna add in 1 of these full of water. I'm gonna return the still head on I've actually changed the configuration of this still. It's the Alcoengine Pot Still head with a brand new lid, which has a 4-inch triclover on the top so that I can add in bubble plates and sight glasses if I want to in the future. And there is a sight glass on the front of this lid as well so that I can see what's going on within the boiler. This is all being controlled with the Rapt Temp controller. The Rapt Temp controller allows me to essentially set up different configurations or scenes that allow me to control the actual boiler if I was doing, say, a stripping run or something where I wanted it to turn off after a certain temperature's reached in the head of the still. So this is really useful stuff. It allows you to literally control the heating and cooling around pretty much any device. Flick the boiler on, do up the lid maybe, let it boil, turn on the head once it gets up to temperature, and I'm going to start collecting all of my cuts. Alright, we are now collecting spirit. So I'm actually going to take off the top 200 mils and discard as foreshot, even though I've done it the first time. I just want to be super careful. I'm not going to use that deep into the heads anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead, discard of this, swap it out for a large beaker. So there's 200, and we're starting on heads. It doesn't actually smell too bad because that is the second round of foreshot that I've taken off. So now we're in full distill. I just want to show you what's going on in the boiler. Ah, that's what I forgot. I forgot to add the distilling conditioner. There's a bunch of headroom in this, so I'm just hoping that we're not going to get a puke. Interesting that I can see that now. That's very useful. Okay, so we are deep in the hearts, and I have 3 mils of water here, and I'm going to take 3 mils of our spirit. Ooh, that is delicious. Oh, wow. That's flavoring. That is white rum. That is absolutely white rum. That's delicious. I'm very excited to age this. Okay, because I'm very happy with these two, I'm going to start collecting into a large jar in the center because I've only got a finite amount of jars and this is quite a large spirit run. So I'm actually going to combine the hearts into a middle large jar so that I can keep it in a large jar. I'm going to add in my hearts that I'm happy with. So 5, 6, 7. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And all I've got to do now is make the cut. So I made the cut at the start and I was very happy with that. And now I'm just going to see how far into the tails and the feints that I want to go. Actually, this is the feints. So here we have about 20%. I started using a distiller's parrot at the end, and that 20%, I'm not really worried about smearing because I'm probably not going to use the tails as well. So I'm going to have a bit of a smell and see what I want to include. Yes to 11, yes to 12. And 12 is above 50, so 12 is still, ooh, 45 at 14. 15's out. So I've got to decide whether I want to include 14 essentially. It's a yes. We are at about 75%. So I'm going to add in the ones that we've decided to keep. And I want to get this down to cask strength. So we are at about 70% right now. So ideally we want to age these at a strength below 65%, and they're at 70% at the moment. So I'm going to fill this up to pretty much the top with water. We are at 60%, which is 120 proof. That is a good strength. And because I'm just testing out this recipe, I'm going to be using these to age my spirits. Now this technically will not produce a rum that's legal to sell in Australia. These are ex-oakers. This is a US American oak medium char. For each 5 liters, you want to use 1 of these balls. Unless you want a darker spirit, which you can use 2 per 5 liters. This is what they look like, and they're just balls of US oak. I'm going to be using 3 spheres for this 10 liters because I kind of want a medium oak intensity. So there they are, and we just drop them into our rum. And that is recommended to be left for 4 months. Now you can definitely do the same with American oak wood chips that you char yourself. These are just really convenient and they're quite cheap too. As for all the heads and tails, I collect them and put them into a labeled bottle. This is an old distilled water bottle. And run this back through the still on future distillations. All right, so here we have the result of all that hard work. That is 10 liters of 60% rum, and it's been on the ex-oakers for a little bit. You can see some of the color coming through, but it's got a while to go. What I want to do now though is I want to speed this up a little bit so that I can deliver you a YouTube video in a reasonable amount of time. What we're going to do is we are going to ultrasonically age this. So to age this rum, and I use the word age very loosely because I do not believe that this gives the same result as aging in a barrel, which is what I will be doing for most of my products going forward with the Hinterland Distillery project. However, this process will give us some idea of what the final product will turn out like if we were to age it on, say, ex-oakers or within a barrel. To start with, I'm just going to take some of our rum that we've made, fill a jar up, and it does have a little color already. To this, we're gonna add in an ex-oaker, throw the lid on, and I'm just gonna place this into our ultrasonic bath. And I'm gonna run it for 30 minutes. What actually happens in this bath is ultrasonic vibrations cause cavitation within the liquid. The air inside the liquid cavitates in a similar manner to a droplet of liquid hitting the surface of water. It essentially implodes, and this drives the alcohol into and out of anything that you put into the alcohol, which makes it really good for infusions and even using for like just extracting sugar from a mash. This is the fun part. Here is the result that came out of our ultrasonic bath, and the color is actually really nice. There you go, that is rum colored, absolutely. What I want to do now is I want to try the result, stack it up against some of the best rum that I've ever had, and see how I've done. Now, I don't expect to get to this, but like, it would be nice if I can go, they are the same spirit. So let's pour them out. Now let's start with my aged rum. Now this is at 60%. I've taken the ice out because it's going to take me a while to go through this. The difference in color, this is the Capricorn rum, and it is just this most incredible oaked color. The Capricorn is at 48% ABV, 96 proof. This is 60%, so I probably should water this down a little bit. Ooh, that is really good. I'm just gonna put a dash of water in it. So, that is incredible. The oaks come through out of that ex-oaker. It's given it a ton of flavor, especially compared to the unoaked straight out of the still. It's taken a bit of the harshness away. Oh, that is actually a really good rum. I'm excited to have created that actually. What am I getting here? I don't know how Jesse does it. I really need to develop my palate. I'm like stumped for flavors here. It tastes like rum, which is good. This is probably gonna put mine to shame, but I need sort of like a yardstick. So I bloody loved this rum when I went there the other day. So I had to buy a bottle. They're all available online too because they're an artisan producer. So you can get this and taste it for yourself. Oh, there's just so much more oak there. So this has been aged for 4 years. It has to be aged for a minimum amount of time in Australia. Otherwise, white rum can't even be called white rum. It can only be called cane spirit. It's fruitier. I don't know. The aging on the oak has like mellowed it out a ton. I'm not saying that the starting product was the same, but this is smooth and it's developed, it's kind of more complex. It's less like slap you in the face with rum and more, I don't know, there's a lot more flavor on the back of my tongue. Ah, man. These have the same ingredients. It's molasses that's been fermented using a very similar yeast and then pot distilled, although their pots are proper copper pots. Man, it is a really lovely, easy drinking rum, this one, but it is a high ABV, like 48%. I think this will actually age really well, and I can see something like this in its future. This is why I love small batch artisan. It is just something that you can make yourself because you control the quality of the product. So you can make it with as much love as you like and get to something that can hold a candle at least to what the pros are doing. This is incredible stuff. And I think that it'll take me years to get to the ability to make this kind of rum, literally through aging, but you can do it. You can follow the steps in this video and you can get to a product that you are excited to drink. I'm in the process of sourcing barrels for the distillery that I've started, Hinterland Distillery, all the links in the description, so that I can make product like this that I am completely open with the recipe and processes, and you can try it yourself at home. Oh shit. Sorry, just realized my still's running and we're almost out. There is the foreshot. It almost completely ran away on me. Oh, all right, back to it. Oh yeah, so where were we? Yeah, if you are a distillery and you'd like to share your processes and a bit of love and you want to be featured on the channel in a recipe like this, let me know, because I'll be making videos like this about all different types of spirits and the people behind them. I hope you enjoyed this episode of All the Gear as much as I enjoyed researching and making it. And I hope I left you with a couple of ideas. I'll see you next time on All the Gear. It's a hard job.